Hi, welcome to episode 66 of Fresh Air at 5, the podcast. This is the week after I step back into school after having a 2-week spring break, and I have been excited and enthusiastic about doing what I've been doing. I've worked really hard this week. It has been a lot of work, but that's all good because I've seen students make some advances and I have learned a lot of things. As you'll hear in the podcast, I start off with listening to the partial credit guys as they talk with Tanya Avereth about creativity. We worked through the week and learned some other things, and it's so good. So I encourage you to stick around, take a listen to all that I have to say. Go subscribe to EduGals podcast. Give them some props as they are new to the Educational Podcast Network. And without further ado, have a good day.
I'm Katie Atwell, co-host of the EduGals podcast, a part of the Education Podcast Network, just like the show you're listening to now. Shows on the network are individually owned, and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other interesting education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
Welcome to Fresh Air at 5, the podcast. I'm your host, Brian Carpenter. Fresh Air at 5 is my regular attempt to exercise by walking about my neighborhood to take in podcast content, then reflect in an unedited video, which I finally post to my Twitter channel. This podcast will be a regular collection of the audio from these selfie videos. You can follow me on Twitter at FreshAirAtFive or check out my website, briancarpenter.com, for other content I have created and collected.
Hey PLN, welcome to the top of Fresh Air at 5, episode 66, as I step out the door this morning for fresh air at 3. Couldn't sleep. I was so exhausted last night. I went to bed, I think at 9 o'clock p.m., which is super early for me. And doing so, I woke up early. And I'm like, let's go for a walk. So, it's nice and quiet. Walking up this main road, there's no cars coming. Super quiet out here. Super nice. And I thought I'd get it in so that I can then get home and get on with the beginning of the week after spring break. Typically got lots of marking to do, and I do. Looked at my inbox, and there's lots of online marking that has been submitted over spring break that I need to get to, so I'm going to work on that. All right, first thing this morning, I listened to Shukes and Giff, Season 5, Episode 12, as Jen comes on and tells us that she's finally motivated. Jen, it has been a long winter. I do agree. It's still cool here, but spring is popping here. So I'm sorry to say that. And I think it's popping for you out there in Ontario and getting a bit warmer. But it's been a long winter. We're getting into hiking here and doing all kinds of stuff like that and getting outside more. I'm trying to still get outside for my morning walk. It's not as hard now as it's not as cold, but that's okay. So thanks for your shares. I appreciate them. And there's a great list of show notes for everybody to go take a listen to. I like the iPhone tricks and how Siri can take a screenshot. So that's quite fantastic that Siri can do that. And just the double tap on the back for taking a screenshot. All right. So many good things. I'm not going to share them all, but there's Tom Mulaney's episode about the fonts for the ages, and take a listen to that. Well, here comes a car. It's not totally quiet, but all right. So thanks all. Have a great day. Got another podcast. Let's do. Here we go. Bye. One more thing for March 28, 2022. This morning I'm listening to House of EdTech, episode 198. And a couple things happened here. We are 2 episodes away for Chris to roll out episode 200 of this epic journey of a podcast that he has had since 2007. Congratulations, Chris. You have shared a lot of content. You have shared and made a difference in people's lives. Like this guy right here, I've got a podcast because you encouraged me and grew me into doing so. So that's fantastic. Really appreciate that. And just the nostalgia going on. Well, talking about nostalgia, you brought up Back to the Future with Marty McFly and Doc, and just how you sat down and watched that with your son. That's a great watch. Fantastic to do. I haven't done a lot of that with my kids with some of the classics, but I guess I should. This past weekend I watched A New Hope with my daughter and her friends, so I guess that's me taking back and watching a classic. So so that's great. On this episode you talk about ScreenPal. I do need you to go check out ScreenPal by Screencast-O-Matic and to look into video responses and a quick way of sharing a link in the content of a video with my students and other people as I communicate with them. So that's a great idea. And your March Madness Final Four, how you bring to us today. ScreenPal is the champ. Spoiler alert, I just shared what it was, so people, you got to go take a listen, because Chris does a walk back through memory lane of the March Madness Final Four that he has on House of EdTech since 2007, and he reviews the different apps that have been there and that are not there anymore. And it's interesting and curious to watch this history. So Chris, congratulations on that. That's fantastic. And we'll talk to you guys soon. And all those other podcasts that have joined the Educational Podcast Network, go take a look at the EPN, because there is lots of great podcasts myself. There is Partial Credit, Chris Nessie is there, and many, many others are there. And we've got some new people joining us. All right, happy day. Bye. One more thing for March 28, 2022. This morning I'm listening to House of EdTech, episode 198. And a couple things happened here. We are 2 episodes away for Chris to roll out episode 200 of this epic journey of a podcast that he has had since 2007. Congratulations, Chris. You have shared a lot of content. You have shared and made a difference in people's lives. Like this guy right here, I've got a podcast because you encouraged me and grew me into doing so. So that's fantastic. Really appreciate that. And just the nostalgia going on. Well, talking about nostalgia, you brought up Back to the Future with Marty McFly and Doc, and just how you sat down and watched that with your son. That's a great watch. Fantastic to do. I haven't done a lot of that with my kids with some of the classics, but I guess I should. This past weekend I watched A New Hope with my daughter and her friends, so I guess that's me taking back and watching a classic. So so that's great. On this episode you talk about ScreenPal. I do need you to go check out ScreenPal by Screencast-O-Matic and to look into video responses and a quick way of sharing a link in the content of a video with my students and other people as I communicate with them. So that's a great idea. And your March Madness Final Four, how you bring to us today. ScreenPal is the champ. Spoiler alert, I just shared what it was, so people, you got to go take a listen, because Chris does a walk back through memory lane of the March Madness Final Four that he has on House of EdTech since 2007, and he reviews the different apps that have been there and that are not there anymore. And it's interesting and curious to watch this history. So Chris, congratulations on that. That's fantastic. And we'll talk to you guys soon. And all those other podcasts that have joined the Educational Podcast Network, go take a look at the EPN, because there is lots of great podcasts myself. There is Partial Credit, Chris Nessie is there, and many, many others are there. And we've got some new people joining us. All right, happy day. Bye. PLN March 29, 2022, out this morning for Fresh Air at 5. Whoa, there's 2 raccoons running across the road in front of me. Just saw some wildlife. That's crazy. Or is it domestic life because they're in the neighborhood and they do garbage cans? I'm not sure. Okay, so that was random, but I'm out walking this morning, and it's a beautiful morning. 7 degrees Celsius. Temperatures are coming up, so I'm excited about spring. Our garden in our front of our house is just popping right now. Sorry, Jen Giffen, that it's still cold in Ontario, but it's going to warm up. It will, and it'll get nicer. All right, I listened to episode 88 of Partial Credit Podcast, and at the outset of that, I heard my voice on the bumper of the podcast from the boys. They used my bumper for the Educational Podcast Network, and thanks, Jeff, for the shout out on that and touching base. And I met all three of these guys at different times when they came through Vancouver for the EdTech team Google Summits back, was in 2016, 17, and something, maybe 18. They came through, and I got to touch base just briefly in one of their sessions with each of them, and it's pretty nifty. So, Partial Credit, you guys are near and dear to my heart, because that was a significant part of my learning and creativity journey that has got me to here where I am now. All right, so the title is Creativity for All with Tanya Avereth. And Tanya, thank you so much for hanging out with the three guys and sharing your wisdom with us. And something that I've taken out of this episode, well, there's a few things, like that CERN Collider website. That's brilliant, Donnie. Love it. I'm going to share that with my students today. Is about the creativity and creative expression compared to creative thinking. Okay, so that there is significant. I haven't done my level 2 Adobe Creative Educator yet. Need to get on that and finish that up. I got my level 1, and that's an important thing to think about, is how we express ourselves compared to how we think. I'm coming right back. 1 second. One more thing for March 29, 2022. Okay, coming back to Partial Credit episode 88 with Tanya Avereth, Jeff, Donnie, and Jesse. Sorry, Jesse. These guys were talking about creativity and how creativity, is about creative expression compared to creative thinking. And I think that's where I've gotten hung up in the past, is with creative expression and not thinking about myself as an expressor creatively. I've gotten better in the past few years. And if you listen to my recent episode on the Wired Educator podcast with Kelly Croy, episode 221, you'll hear me talk about this struggle that I had, and that I am not an artist, or I'm not a fine artist, or a painter, or a dancer, or things like that you think of as creative expression. But thinking wise, I think I am, and I know I am a creative that way. So this has been a big shift for me, and this, you guys talking about creativity has really helped me understand more about myself. Next week, I'm going to be doing a session at a conference, the DL Symposium with Kenny Learn, about Adobe Creative Cloud Express. And my angst is that they changed the name. You guys changed the name of it, but we all are struggling with that. But just how we can use these tools to get at expressing and showing and demonstrating our understanding and showing our learning. So I'm pretty excited about being able to do that. I have a lot of work to do on my slides because I have to change it from Adobe Spark to Creative Cloud Express this week. But there's probably an Adobe tool that can help me with that really quick. Maybe Creative Cloud Express can help me in its own right. But anyhow, so thanks so much, Tanya. And another thing that you said is about not holding on to your creations as they, too preciously and hanging on to them, but being willing to take and say, that's really good that I did a good job, I did a great job there, but that is not the final product. I can remix it and change it. So looking forward to seeing my students today talk about creativity, and we'll see what they can make. Peace. Have a great day. Bye. Oh, and one more thing. Just wondering, Tanya, where are you from in Canada? That I didn't know you're from Canada. That's pretty nifty. I'm up near Vancouver, BC, and so that's something that just jumped into my head. I'll have to put this little segment in my podcast. Tanya has been on my radar for the past 7 or 8 years, and really picked up when I had her Google Infused Classroom book with Holly Clark. And Holly came to the first Google Summit that we had. We've only had 2 Google Summits here at Abbotsford, but the first Google Summit, Holly Clark came and did a book smash with Trevor McKenzie, and on the day before the conference, about the Google Infused Classroom and Inquiry Mindset with Trevor McKenzie. So thank you to both of them for that. And Tanya, I've seen your name. I've watched your stuff on Twitter and on the internet, and I appreciate the effort that you're putting into bringing creativity to all. All right, I just want to say that. Thanks so much, fellow Canadian. And yeah, all right, so that's on the heels of the Partial Credit Podcast, episode 88. And Jesse Lubitsky may be the newest Adobe evangelist, working alongside another Adobe evangelist, Tanya Averith, and there's many other Adobe evangelists. So that's a job title that's pretty awesome. And they said in this podcast it's a bit cringeworthy, but it is your title, Jesse. So congratulations. Haven't said that on the air. And so there you go. Thanks. Bye. APLN, Wednesday, March 30, 2022. We got 2 days left in March, and wow, can't believe how fast it has gone. So yeah, the past 2 days back to school after spring break have been full and rich and good, and connecting with my online students and my face-to-face students, and having a lot of fun. So tired, because that's what happens after you've had a break for a while and then you're back at it, that you feel that way. But I think I feel that way almost every week, because I enjoy my weekends so much, not excessively, but you know, that I like enjoy the rest and take that time for myself and my family, and then I'm back to work. So yeah, so here we are, Wednesday morning, and marking's caught up in my marking block. Teachers at my school, if you're listening, I'm sorry, but I got mine caught up last night, which I worked really hard at. And not saying that you're not working hard, you got different things than I do. So that's, yes. Okay, I'm going to stop talking about that. I'm going to talk about episode 146 of Check This Out podcast. And Ryan O'Donnell and Brian Briggs. And Ryan O'Donnell is back. He's back in the saddle. And dudes, I walked out the door this morning, turned that on, and I started laughing right away because of that bumper about Xana Q and Olivia Newton-John singing about you guys, your show. And so it was so fantastic to hear. And so thanks for the smiles, and thanks for the laughs, and the information and sharing from your heart about how things are going, because it's been going hard. We're 2 years into since the pandemic started, and how has that affected us in our spaces? I think there has been a real effect that has been a lot longer than just really short, like we thought it was at the very beginning. You guys talked about ScreenPal, Moat, background vocal remover. I have to check that one out for sound bites, and about Podcastle and connections with people. So fantastic. Ryan O'Donnell, I'm going to send you some bits so that maybe you can share them. Hopefully they'll check this out worthy. All right, peace, boys. Have a great day. Bye. Last thing for March 30, 2022, I was walking along and I'm like, you know what? There's a new podcast that's part of the Education Podcast Network that I'm a part of. And big shout out to all the podcasters in that group. A new podcast that has joined our network is the EduGals Podcast, and that is with Rachel Johnson and Katie Atwell. And thank you, ladies, for jumping in and joining our group. It's a fun group. I'm part of the group. I got the podcast Fresh Air at 5, and I've been there for about a year, a little bit more than a year now, and I started back in January of 2020, and we've got lots of other podcasters and educators in this Educational Podcast Network. So the episode 83 of the EduGals podcast, this is a hashtag new to me podcast, is they're talking about leveraging audio in the classroom. And this intrigues me, ladies. I like the idea of having audio in the classroom in various spaces. And right away, as you said, we go to podcasting. And how can we podcast or micro podcasts and have students record their thoughts? But then you get into some really functional and practical right now in the comment box. How do we leave a voice comment? What's the point of that? And how does that increase the personal connection? Yes, I can personally type a message, and then, from there, I can, it's typed and it's in my words, but then I can go back and edit it, as opposed to me recording an audio. And like it is raw right now, it just comes out and it's sitting there and it's my thoughts. It doesn't have to be polished, it doesn't have to be perfect, but it is very communicative about that. So I like the audio thing, and the whole transcription part is also curious to me. You didn't talk much about that, but in our learning management system, we have text message. I could probably use something like Mote to add a audio comment that is linked to a stored file in the Mote's realm, or you could use something maybe like voice-in-voice typing that I learned about from Eric Kurtz on Control-Alt-Achieve. Thanks, ladies. Nice to meet you. Have a great day. Bye. Hey, PLN, March 31, 2022, out here for Fresh Air at 5 in the afternoon on an absolutely beautiful day here in the Fraser Valley, where I live, and out delivering papers. And I took in episode 108 of the EdTech podcast, and Nick and Eric bring us 15 cell phone apps for teachers and students, and they talk all manner of project management and productivity and content creation and curation and all kinds of things like that students and teachers can use. At the outset, the question came up of, do you let your students use cell phones in class? Well, for me, in my classroom space at my small school, during class, depending on what it is, I do let students use their cell phones. You know, part of having a cell phone in our world today is that we need to teach students, and even us as adults, and model the proper use of cell phones. You know, when you go to a meeting, does your cell phone sit there in front of you and distract you, or do you put it away? And, you know, as teachers, what do we do in class with our cell phones, and how do we model? Some days I'm actually not very good at this. I don't model very well, and other days I do pretty good at this. So it's a real world problem, and if we can be real with our students about the challenges and joys of cell phones, then that is awesome to do, and I think it's very important for us to do. At the high school level, yeah, you know, they're there. They're in their pockets. Middle school as well, not as much, but they're still possibly there. And, you know, if we can help students even deal with their understanding of what these devices are good for and how to model content creation on them, I think it's a good thing. Consuming only is not great. So how can you use your cell phone to create content? Okay, take a listen to episode 108 of EdTech, the podcast with Eric and Nick. And gentlemen, have a fabulous day. Carpenter out, going home to have dinner. Okay, bye. Hey, PLN, Friday, April 1st. It's not a joke. It's true. It's like early in the morning. I'm up walking. And, you know, today's April Fool's Day. It's another day, though, of normal because, well, we get to do normal things like go to school, engage students, learn stuff, make a difference in people's worlds, in our own world, and move the progress forward. So, yes, why am I out here this morning? I'm out here for professional development for myself. I'm out here for exercise for myself. I'm out here to provide an opportunity for professional development for you, and to be able to share my learning so that I can go beyond what I am doing. And you know what? My learning in the mornings here on Fresh Air at 5 goes into my classroom. Did an activity this week with my students that was suggested by Jeff Heil about 50 things that make you happy, and making a list of those things as a prompt starter for students for creativity projects when they're like, I don't know what to talk about. It's like, go to your list of 50 things and make me something. And so that's where we can kind of get to, you know, with our learning and how does it impact our students. That's the conversation that we hear on episode 16 of Reflect Ed with AJ Bianco and guest David Frangioso. And gentlemen, thank you for the rich conversation about professional development and learning, and how we as professionals can dig in to our own learning and how it is prescribed to us and set upon us, and how do we go about doing things like that? Regardless of the opportunity or the obligation, I find that I take something away from every situation. There may be things that are mandatory, and there may be things that are not mandatory, but we need to, as professionals, dig in and pay attention so that we can learn something. Gentlemen, thank you so much for the conversation. How do I do it? I listen to podcasts, like I said. That's one way that I do it. Another way that we do it in our district, I'm going to come back to this in one more thing in one moment. Hang on. One more thing for April 1st, 2022. I was talking about Reflect Ed episode 16. Go take a listen to this because it will prompt you to think about how you do professional development. If you're already listening to podcasts and you're listening to me talk, that's one step forward, or a few steps forward maybe, in your learning that you do, because you're on Twitter, you're engaged in a community that is hearing and seeing the activities of others. And, you might go, oh, I have nothing to share, or I don't have, and we have a lot of things that we can share with each other. And I felt that way at one point, but now I'm out there doing this. Okay, David Frangioso and AJ Bianco, we're talking about what we do in our schools and how do we do that. So gentlemen, here's what happens in my school district. I'm in a school district of about 20,000 students. There's about 1,500 teachers or so, I think, in our school district. Probably more, actually. Probably more than that, maybe 25 or something, but it doesn't matter. And we are required to engage in 6 non-instructional days of professional development and learning over the course of the year. That schedule's set by the district, goes into the calendars so that we have release time. The whole district has release time on those days to be able to go and learn things. So those are the regular Pro D days. Something new that started at the beginning of COVID to get schools up to speed quickly with blended learning opportunities and how we can use Google Classroom and Canvas LMS and other ways of delivering remotely to our students was every Friday morning, not every Friday morning, once a month on a Friday morning at the beginning of the day, an hour is allotted to teachers in buildings to have some engagement in collaboration and professional development. We are working through inquiry mindset with Trevor McKenzie right now. It's really good. So that's some of the things that's going on here. Okay, one more thing coming up. Hang on. Another one more thing for April 1, 2022. Continuing my reflection on episode 16 of Reflect Ed with AJ Bianco and David Frangioso. And in my district, I talked about our 6 professional development days, talked about our monthly on a Friday morning staff learning opportunity, mornings of learning, and other things that we are encouraged to do is to engage with our digital ambassadors. Every school has one. It's a way of connecting our technologies to the classroom and having an in-building person that can help relay information back and forth about what's going on in schools. I am one of those people. And in our departments of teaching areas, we have had also, pullouts at moments in time for in-service for, math and science and technology and social studies and PE and get together to collaborate on those kinds of things. Okay, there's a lot that's going on in my district. It's amazing to think and see all those things. But I've seen the prescription and the need to do, and I am required to do, and then my demeanor changes sometimes, and I need to make sure. Not for me as much, but I see it for a lot of other people. Oh, we got to do that again. Oh my goodness, right? And I look at it as, yeah, we get an opportunity to slow down and learn something. So that's why I listen to podcasts as I do. I probably got, lots of hours. I'm getting like 6 hours a week of podcast listening. Let's do that times 52 weeks. That's like a lot of hours. 300 hours. I don't know. A lot of hours in a year. Can't do that math right now. of learning, of podcast learning, and then I reflect and share that with you. Okay, I can keep going. Happy April 1st, gentlemen, and everybody out there listening. Appreciate you. Okay, bye. The last thing for April 1, 2022, as I'm wrapping up Fresh Air at 5 for today and for this week on episode 66 of Fresh Air at 5. I have listened to the Ignite EdTech podcast with Craig Kemp as host, and thanks, Craig, for bringing us a weekly dose of EdTech and enthusiasm to inspire us to step forward in this thing that we do called education. And on episode 86, you asked us and talk about what are you doing over the spring break to re-energize yourself and to move forward so that you can come back refreshed and ready to go. Well, I finished my 2 weeks of spring break, did a couple of hikes and snowshoes, and went fishing and slept in. But one thing that I did not stop doing was engaging my brain in professional development by listening to podcasts. So you can hear my podcast that I listened to in episodes 64 and 65 of Fresh Air at 5. And so there I kept on going. I kept out getting out for my morning walks and afternoon walks. And the schedule changed a little bit, but I still kept on doing that, and it really helps make me feel better. I did some work. I didn't put my computer away completely, but that's my choice, and it wasn't obligated on me at all. All right, in this episode of 86, you talked with Jennifer Chang Wathel, and she is an educator out of Hong Kong and teaches at the university and has some books. And so it was inspiring to hear her talk about her professional journey and how her father was instrumental in getting her to where she is now as an educator. Thank you, Jennifer, for sharing about the IB program and developing curriculum and not settling for the status quo, but always keeping on pushing to make things better. Thanks, Craig. Appreciate you. Have a fabulous day where you are. And if you're on break right now, I hope you're having a fabulous break. Okay, that's it. Have a great day. Carpenter out. Bye.
As my one word for 2021 is appreciate, I appreciate you giving me a listen as I've created this podcast experience for you. It's a unique Blinkist or Coles Notes version of the content I take in, like a highlight reel, so that you can hopefully find other interesting podcasts you may not have considered before. I've recorded the specific podcast episodes in the show notes for your learning convenience. Please subscribe so you don't miss any of my upcoming episodes. And if you enjoy this podcast and its format, share it with someone else. Tweet about your experience or give it a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts. Fresh Air at 5 can also be found on Voice Ed Radio. Your voice is right here, and on the Education Podcast Network, Podcasts for Educators, Podcasts by Educators. I hope you have a fantastic day and get some fresh air before the day is out, and take care of yourself because you're worth it.